Hi, welcome to a Choices History Moment. I'm your host, I'm Dennis, and today I want to tell you a story about a hero of World War II, specifically of the Polish Army. Now, the background you have to understand is that at the beginning of the war, Poland was squeezed between two great enemies, Germany on one side and Russia on the other, and there was great chaos, and many of the Polish soldiers were killed or imprisoned by the Germans or by the Russians on the other side. But at some point during the war, in 1942, the Germans changed sides and they attacked the Russians. And so the result was a great deal of these Polish soldiers who had been captured by the Russians were turned loose. Now we were fighting on the same side. And the way they got loose was they couldn't go west, they couldn't stay in Poland, and they couldn't go home. So they ended up going to Iran. And in Iran, they formed their own military units and then volunteered to serve with the British fighting the Nazis. And they were called the Free Polish. There were Free French units, Free Czechs, and so on, people who had escaped from countries under German occupation. Well, this particular group formed in Iran, as I said, and they accepted a new member who actually wasn't from Poland. But they gave him a Polish name. They called him Wojciech. And he enlisted with them when he was quite young. And he served throughout World War II. In the course of his service, he was in Iraq, he was in Egypt, he was in Syria. Later, when the 22nd Polish unit was involved in one of the most important battles of World War II in Italy, the Battle of Monte Cassino, which was a giant mountain that overlooked the only road through that area to get to Rome. And the mountain could control the road with big artillery on top of it shooting down. The Allies had to take it. And British, American forces, Polish forces, and even people as far away as Nepal were involved in this great battle to capture that mountain in order to head toward Rome. And so he was there. Wojciech was there. And in fact, he was known for his bravery in that particular battle. The main thing was that he was part of an artillery unit. Now, artillery has to carry big, giant bullets, big shells. And Wojciech was very strong. They said that he could carry 3 times as much as the average soldier could. And so he spent the battle carrying big crates full of artillery shells from an ammo depot up the mountain to where they were actually firing the cannons. And took enormous strength and bravery because there's, gunfire going on the whole time. And he did that. He was really an incredible guy. He had a neat life. He was a regular guy. He liked to drink coffee in the morning and he liked to have a beer in the afternoon. He liked cigarettes as well. And he wasn't a very little guy, though. He weighed 490 pounds. Maybe that's where some of his great strength came from. So the war comes to an end, and by this point, the Polish soldiers are serving with the British Army. They're stationed in Scotland. And the war ends and they're disbanded. Most of them became British citizens and stayed in Scotland or England because they really couldn't go home because the communist Russians had taken over their home and then weren't welcome back. And so they stuck around, but he had to have a home. He didn't really have a place to go, being an orphan anyway in the first place with no family. So he ended up living in Edinburgh at the zoo. Why at the zoo, you ask? Is because Wojciech was a bear, a Syrian brown bear, who had been rescued as a cub in Iran by the Polish soldiers. He slept in their tents. He said he saluted when he was saluted to. He saluted back. He carried ammunition for them. He went with them in the battle. He was with them at all times. Never a problem. He loved to wrestle with them. He was always gentle and friendly with the other soldiers. So he went to go live in the Edinburgh Zoo. Well, that's not the end of his story. He had a second career. He became the star of a children's television program, an early television show in Scotland. He was enormously popular at the zoo. All of his old friends would come and visit him, and they would give him cigarettes. But I have to tell you, he didn't smoke them. He ate them. He liked to eat cigarettes. So they would come and visit him, and he would see his old friends and be very excited, and they would throw cigarettes into his cage so that he could eat cigarettes. So that's the story of the Polish bear, who, by the way, was a corporal in the Polish army. He got that promotion because of his bravery at the Battle of Monte Cassino. And they made him a private originally because when they went from the Middle East to Europe, the British refused to transport him because they didn't take pets on the transport ships. So they made him a private in the Army. He got his own paycheck and had his own serial number and his own tent and the whole thing. And that worked. And so off Volchek went. This has been a Choices History Moment with Dennis. I hope you tune in again for another interesting moment from history. Thank you.